I am out here getting ready to cover up my tomatoes because it's supposed to get down about 32, 33 degrees tonight. That's Fahrenheit for those of you in other parts of the world. And so my tomatoes are already planted out here, and I thought it would be a good time to talk about understanding your last frost date. One of the reasons I have my tomatoes out here already is that because of life schedules and travels and weddings, I planted them by seed a little early, and so they were just getting too big for the pots. And I know that I can be pretty diligent with keeping them covered, but usually I can use these little greenhouse milk carton things to cover them, my tomatoes, and keep them safe. But these are just a little bit too big. They don't quite fit, and they were catching air and getting blown off. It's the first year I've ever had any problems with them blowing off, and plus you can see the leaves are touching the outside and don't all the way fit, so that leaves them kind of vulnerable, not to mention possibly breaking them. I don't usually plant my tomatoes out until closer to May, but like I said, this year they got started too early, so I just went with it, and that one looks a lot worse than, say, this one. This one looks very good, and they're the same variety. You can get away with planting plants out before the last frost. It's really a matter of how much the soil temperature has warmed, but these won't really take off until the average soil temperature is better. And so while you can get away with it, and it might make the most sense depending on how much you can cover them, you can't get away with planting a lot of the warm weather seeds, not just because, like beans and corn, not just because they'll suffer from frost if they sprout, but because the soil simply isn't warm enough and they won't germinate well. But on the other hand, I've got some leeks that I started from seed, and they're doing fine in this weather. You can't get out and cover your plants too early because you don't want them under the cover when it's too hot, but it's best if you can get it done pretty much just as the sun is no longer on them, because that retains the most warmth possible. So I'm actually a little late getting these covered, but I've got these old flannel sheets, and I'm going to clothespin them on and cover all of that up. So I've got that all on there, got it attached to those cages with clothespins, and clothespins attaching the sheets where there might be gaps, and hopefully that will give them adequate protection for the night. And here I've covered my cherry tomato and my beefsteak type sandwich tomato. The thing is, covering them like this only really works if it's just at freezing or a light frost, like 32, 33 and above. If you go lower, there's nothing here producing heat, and it'll get too cold in there, but this can just keep the final killing effects off. You can see that some plants are doing fine in spite of the cold weather. These are volunteers. They don't need any cover at all. And this is a good way to discover things like my calendulas that have volunteered here that I need to thin are doing quite well. My peas, which I planted in late February, those don't need any covering at all. They're thriving in this weather, as are my bunching onions. And it is a volunteer lettuce here. I never completely clean out my potato raised bed, and they've been handling the frost temperatures, although they wouldn't like it if it got down really, really cold. And now what's left is to take my trays into the greenhouse. Even though they're all hardened off so they can be left out all day long here, they need to go in the greenhouse at night. But maybe you can see that my tomatoes are drooping a little bit, and that's one of the reasons I went ahead and planted them out. They were just getting hard to keep in the pot.